So the next pattern has some new features in and some that we're familiar with. So it starts off in exactly the same way that we have previously, and it's going to end in the way that previous bookmarks have ended. We've got fans, and this time, rather than spiders or rose ground, we've got cloth blocks in the middle of it. Our fan's different because it's in half stitch, but although it's in half stitch, it's got a cloth stitch and twist edge to it. Half stitch, if we did this in colour, the pairs would separate, but that hasn't happened. We've just got the cloth and twist edge. You'll also see that this side looks slightly different to that side. That's not an optical illusion. I've actually added an extra pair into the work along that side, which does mean you get a slightly different effect. You can choose which one you want to do. I've also looked at introducing a new worker and a coloured worker to the work there. And finally, the Gimp. So a Gimp is an outlining thread. Mine's quite fine on this pattern. You can get them much thicker than this. It is actually held away from both the cloth block and the fan by twists. Not huge numbers of twists, as just enough to hold it away and to get that outlining effect. So let's look at the working diagram alongside the lace. Okay, so lots that we're familiar with and some stuff that we're not. So the bit that we're familiar with to start with is at the top, and that's all half stitch, pin, half stitch. And this time there's no coloured pair that's going to travel down the diagonal. They're all going to be in my case, in white thread. We've then got this new feature, which is the Gimp, which is an outlining thread. And so that's the purple line. If you're looking at the working diagram, it's a bit strange because it's actually, the official colour coding for a Gimp is yellow, but that's really hard to see. So you do sometimes see yellow with a squiggly line through it, or just a squiggly line, or a black line over the yellow. And that's how I've chosen to do these. So it's actually a wider yellow line with a faint black line. It's really to distinguish it from other pattern markings and other stitches that might appear on a working diagram. We're familiar with this cloth and twist edge to a fan. And we've got half stitch everywhere else over this side. Again, as is normal practice, we're not showing the twists at either end of a row, but it will always need, the worker will always need a total of 2 twists on. So there might be one from the stitch, and we might need to add one extra depending on where we are. So on the cloth blocks, you'll need to add 2. On the cloth and twist edge, you'll only need to add 1 more. And the same on the half stitch area, you'll add 1 more. So where we've got the difference in the 2 fans, what I've actually done is I've actually introduced another in green, another pair that follows through. And at the end of a fan, it literally just travels from one fan to the next fan. You can make your choice which one you prefer. So let's go to the lace pillow, and remember this we've seen before. So it's half stitch, pin, half stitch in one single colour. I'm going to cut back on some of the bits that are in the video that we've done previously, because you should be familiar with those techniques now. So if we look at our working diagram, the first diagonal rows are all half stitch, pin, half stitch. And we can see from the fact that this is half stitch that we're not going to be able to have a single coloured worker in there. So I've already added those diagonal rows in as half, pin, half. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add this Gimp. In the working diagrams that I'm going to use in these videos, a Gimp should be yellow, but it's really hard to see yellow. So there are a couple of ways around that. You do yellow with a thin black line through the middle of it. You do yellow with a squiggly line, but that'd be if you were drawing by hand. So what I've done is I've done a wide yellow line with a black line on top. So it does look slightly strange, but you can see both the yellow and the black there. The reason you wouldn't want it as black is because black is often used as pattern markings, and if you were to photocopy in black and white, it looks like a stitch. So yeah, that's why there's two colours there, or a squiggly line. So the next thing I'm going to do then is add that Gimp. So what I do is I separate the pairs, and I'm going to put a temporary pin to hang the Gimp on. So the Gimp is going to get hung on that pinhole there. So let me take my Gimp and let's loop that around that pin. Okay, so what I need to do now is to take the Gimp through the pairs. So let's see what happens if I pass the Gimp through now. So to pass the Gimp through, I lift left, put down. Okay, so if I do that, you can see that it doesn't hold it. The Gimp moves all over the place. It's not held or anything like that. And a twist after helps a bit, but it's still loose at the top. So let me take the Gimp back. And what we actually do is we put an extra twist on before the Gimp. Okay, so we've got 2 twists on the threads there. Then to pass the Gimp through, I'm going to lift left, and I'm going to take my other bobbin in the right hand and pass that through and put them both down again. So once I've done that, it's still loose on this side, but it's all right the other side, so I twist one. Okay, so that now is held firmly in place on each of them. So let me put another twist on, and let me zoom out. By zooming out, what you can see is you can see my hands. So I'm going to lift left, I've twisted twice already, once more already, in the right hand, pass it through and down, and one twist afterwards. So extra twist, lift left, pass through, one more. That's already got 2 twists on it. Lift left, pass through, put down, one extra twist, and over the other side. Okay, one extra twist, lift left, grab with the right, pass through. Okay, so even though I'm going the other way, it's still lift left, pass through, one extra twist, one extra twist, lift left, pass through, one, and the final one, lift left, grab right, pass through and twist. Okay, let me go back closer into the work. Okay, so the next area in that I'm going to work is going to be this cloth block. And we're going to do 2 different cloth blocks in this pattern. So first of all, it's just a normal cloth block. We're going to put a colour and work it in the next one. So we have weaving lines. The weaving lines tell us to start going this way. Like on a fan, as the work gets wider on a side, you take in a pair. As the side gets narrower, you leave out a pair after you've worked that pin. So the next time you come to it, you don't work through it. Now, the reason I've talked to you about as it's getting wider, as it's getting narrower, is because this method applies to every shape. So if you had a chevron shape, you might be coming out on one side and in on the other, but the same rules still apply. As it's getting wider, which it is all the way along there, we take a pair in. When we come to this side, that's come in. So we leave a pair out at the pin before, and so on. So let me start working that. So cloth stitch at the top. Now the right hand one is going to be my worker, so twist twice and put the pin in. So remember that the twists at the end of cloth rows aren't shown. So the first thing I need to do now is to take out the gimp. And what I don't want to do is what I'm going to now do. So I've pulled it and you can see it comes away. So lift it up a bit and then set it all back. So now I just work backwards and forwards in cloth stitch as my work is getting wider. On this side I've taken a pair. As I'm coming across, it's getting wider on this side, so I've taken a pair. So I'm coming back, it's still getting wider on this side. So it's the pin that you're going to work out that you're really looking at, is it getting wider or narrowing? So taking a pair. I'm going to go back. Okay, and I can still see it's getting wider on the right hand side, so I'm going to take in a pair. Okay, so come back to the other side. It's still getting wider, but this is the last time it's getting wider on this side. Twist twice and put a pin in. So back to the other side. So you can see I am stroking it to give it a bit of tension every so often. I know I'm working a lot faster than I normally do in these videos, but I'm not talking to you about the stitches as I'm doing it. It's still getting wider. So I've brought one more in, but that's the last time it's getting wider on that side. So as we come back, oops, got a twist there, so let me undo that. Okay, it's getting narrower. So I leave one out, twist twice, and put the pin in. Okay. So coming over to the right hand side. When I get just before the last pin, I need to check. Okay, it's getting narrower. So leave one out, twist twice, and put the pin in. And go back. And each time I need to check, is it getting wider or is it getting narrower? So it's getting narrower. Twist twice, put the pin in. So not the last one, it's getting narrower. Twist twice, put the pin in. Okay, it's getting narrower. Leave one out, twist twice, and put the pin in. Now that's the last pin in the diamond, but if I look, there's actually one pair left at each of those 3 pinholes, and I've got 2 at the bottom, so I just cover the pin. Okay, that is my cloth block finished. So the next thing I need to do is to work my gimp through it. So everything needs 2 twists. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and there's one over here that needs 2. Okay, so I'm going to separately bring my gimps to the center. So lift left, pass through. Left, pass through. Lift left, through. Lift left. Okay, so I twisted once after each pass of the gimp, and I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. Lift left, pass through. lift left, pass through, twist, lift left, pass through and twist, lift left, pass through and twist. Okay, so now we've got our two gimps to cross. And what we see on both our working diagram is that they do actually, those lines do cross. They don't do that. So we cross them and we do a twist on those like we would on a thread. So literally they've crossed each other. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move across to the fan. Okay, so at the start of the fan, we need to add another pair in exactly the same way that we have on all the others that we've done so far. So I'm going to put one in there and I'm going to hang a contrasting thread and colour on there. Okay, so like on the previous pattern that had a cloth and twist edge to the fan, what we're going to do is we're going to work cloth stitch and twist here, and pin, cloth stitch and twist. Extra twist because it's an edge, pin, cloth stitch and twist. Okay, so I'm now going to follow the same rules that I had for my diamond. As the shape gets bigger, I'm going to bring in a pair. As it gets narrower, I'm going to leave out a pair. Now, just to highlight that as you're bringing in, you are working in half stitch throughout along this section of the pattern. It's only this section that's cloth stitch and twist. Okay, so when you bring in half stitch, it's still half stitch. So let me move my work down a bit so that you can see hopefully the rest of the working diagram there. So let me do a couple of pins. Right at the end of a row, we've worked through in half stitch, we're going to put one extra twist on it. Then we're going to put the pin in. Then we're going to go back. When we hit the outside passive, we're going to work through that in cloth and twist. At the end of the row, one more twist needed, put the pin in. Okay, come back. It's getting wider on this side, so we bring one more pair in, extra twist on the worker, pin. And across to the side again. We're at the we're at the outer passive, cloth stitch and twist, worker one more twist, and we're going to repeat that throughout the whole of the fan. So I'm going to pause the video at this point and I'm going to work the rest of the fan, and then I'm going to do something slightly different to what the working diagram is going to show me. I'm going to show you what would happen if you had an extra pair in there, and then we'll be able to contrast the look between those two fans. We might not see it in cloth stitch, but we will do it in half stitch. So on the fan on this side, I've added my extra pin, but I'm going to add an extra white passive on the bobbin, sorry, on the pin as well, and then my normal foot side and passive. So I'm only going to work through my contrasting one in cloth stitch and twist for the pattern once it's set. But for the first one, because we're bringing pairs in, we'll work through it in cloth stitch and twist, cloth stitch and twist, two twists, and put the pin in. Okay, so come back, cloth stitch and twist. Getting wider, bring in an extra pair. And we already effectively had a pair in the fan at that point. We won't be going down to both pairs at the point of the fan. We'll always have three at the point. But otherwise, this then works exactly the same. So let me go to the end of the fan. I'll speed the video up and I will then talk to you about the difference. So back in a minute. So I'm at the end of the fan, and as I said at the very end, you would have 3 pairs. So we've got a pair coming out from this pinhole here, but we've got 3 pairs at the end. A worker, an outside, and a second colour. Sorry, a second passive, which just looks like part of the work. Now, in both cases, half stitch fills the curve very well. You can see the passes following that curve, but that extra pair makes quite a difference in terms of how the work looks. So neither's right or wrong. It's just a personal choice as to whether you want to work yours with an extra passive in there to get a much tighter crossing of your half stitch. And they do go more, feels like more at 45 degrees in terms of the crossing, whereas that feels much more like 60 type degrees. So I'm going to pause the video just for a minute, and then I'm going to pull my gimps through off camera, and then I'm going to talk to you about the next cloth block. Okay, so I'm at my next cloth block. Now, what I did when I did the pricking for this, I put a C in the centre. That's not an official marking. That's just me saying, oh, I need to do something different with these blocks. And that something different is putting in a coloured worker. Sometimes it shows up, sometimes it doesn't show up particularly strongly, depending on the colour that you're using. So when we've got an extra worker, which we have here, literally what we do is we cloth stitch at the top, and it is just a cloth stitch. So let me do that now. Cloth stitch, and I put the pin between the pairs. Okay, top pinhole. I'm now going to add my new worker, and the important thing to know is that my worker is going that way. That means I add it around that pin, and literally just to hold it there, but I put it over this side so that it can work across. So let me do that. So literally watching, I'm not catching over any other pins and putting it over there. So mine's quite a pale purple. So this time I'm going to follow the same rule as before, that I work through what's there and bring in as it gets wider. So let me just work a couple of rows to show you how it works. Put the pin in. It will feel a lot tighter in the center as you work in. Your worker will move about a bit at first between the two bobbins. Bring in another one because it's getting wider. Twist twice, put the pin in. Okay, so the only bit that it actually differs is at the end of the of the work. So let me get right down to the end of the work. I'm going to cut the video and just work it. I'm not going to put this bit fast. And let me talk to you about the end of this one. So I've literally taken the worker through and stopped at that point. I then put a pin between the two passive pairs that are in work. And then what I do is cloth stitch those together. Okay, that then is our work complete. But obviously we've got ends here, so we can't just cut them short. So when you're happy that you have done all your work correct, what I do is I reef knot them together. One, two. Okay, so I'm going to leave a tail on that thread, just because that way I've got something to put to the back of my pillow. But the written instructions that come with this pattern say to wind your bobbins unevenly. And the reason for that is that now I can remove the thread that's on this bobbin and wind some thread onto it that's on that bobbin. You can see, looking at the cloth area through the pins, it's not as dark as that is, but actually you can definitely see a difference between the second cloth block and the first. So you then carry on working your pattern in exactly the same way that you have done all the others, following what's come before, and at the end you repeat the same instructions that were part of the last pattern that you did, that had the cloth and twist edge to it. So I'm at the end of the pattern, and what I've forgotten to tell you is how to get rid of your gimps. So it's relatively simple. What we want to do is we want to cross our gimps over and take them so that they double up. Now they do say that after two crossings through two pairs it is secure, but I certainly like to do a bit more than that. So I'm going to do my gimp slightly different. I'm still going to lift and pull through, but I'm not going to do the twist afterwards, because you don't have a twist between gimps, so better not to put any on to start off with. And let me go the other way. Okay, so literally then I cross them just like I would at the top of a normal, and then I'm going to go back through through two. So one, and that's two on each side. I'm going to go through. That's one, and then okay. So they've actually gone now through a total of 4 pairs. So we can now put that extra twist on and go back to all the others that just had one on. Okay, and then we can get rid of our gimps. So for now, what all we do is lengthen them and put them to the back of the pillow. Okay, I like to lengthen mine and throw them right the way over the top, so that the spangles and the weight of the bobbin take them over the back of the pillow. So that's now secured those, and we can now do our very last row of pinholes, and then do the tying off as normal. You won't see that doubling up in the actual work.